The house looked smaller than it should have been. That was Candace's first thought whenever she returned from the grocery store, plastic bags biting into her thin wrists. A withered two-story sitting alone on Willow Lane, its windows shut like eyelids that had given up on opening. The house seemed to shrink with each passing year, just as its shadows grew longer. Candace was 53, and lately she felt every one of those years pressing down on her shoulders. Her husband Michael's death had carved a hollow inside her chest, a hollow she tried to fill with ritual, watering the garden, cleaning the same spotless dishes, whispering prayers in rooms that had stopped listening, but nothing filled it, and the silence of the house pressed in until it became unbearable. Her son Tommy should have filled that silence. He had once been bright and restless, a boy who never stopped asking questions. But after Michael's accident, after the night Candace sat on the kitchen floor clutching the phone and screaming into the void, Tommy had gone into the woods and didn't return for 3 days. When he came back, it wasn't through the front door. It was through his bedroom window. She had found him standing there, a thin figure outlined by the moonlight, his eyes hidden beneath a mask he refused to remove. He never explained where he had been. He never said a word at all. Now, weeks later, he'd barely left his room. He didn't eat in front of her. He didn't answer when she knocked. And worst of all, he was still growing. At first, Candace told herself it was only adolescence. Boys shoot up in height overnight. But this was different. His clothes no longer fit, seams splitting at the shoulders, sleeves riding up to expose wrists that seemed too long, too jointed. He pulled his hair out in tufts, leaving strands tangled on his pillow. And sometimes, when she glimpsed him moving across the hallway, she thought his limbs bent in ways they shouldn't. She tried to tell herself it was grief. She tried to believe her boy was only grieving his father. Yet deep down, Candace felt she was losing him to something stranger, something she couldn't name. One night, when the loneliness was too much, she sat at the dining table and wrote an email. She didn't know who to send it to, only that she needed help. Her words spilled out. "My son won't talk to me anymore. He keeps growing. He won't let me see his face. Please, I think something is horribly wrong." When she pressed send, she felt a flutter of shame, as if she had betrayed Tommy. But relief too, because someone out there might finally hear her. 2 nights later, a reply arrived. They called themselves Parker and Chester, men who investigated strange family troubles, men who promised to come and see for themselves. Candace almost deleted the message. She almost locked her doors and convinced herself none of this was real. But that night, as she brought a tray of food up to Tommy's room, she stopped outside the door and listened. There was no sound inside, no movement. She set the tray down and whispered, "Sweetheart, you need to eat." Then she heard it, the scrape of fingernails against wood, the sound of something heavy shifting inside. A whisper, low, wet, and not quite in her son's voice. She stumbled back, her breath caught in her throat. When the knob rattled as though something wanted out, she fled down the stairs, clutching the banister until her knuckles turned white. The next evening, headlights swept across her yard. 2 young men stepped from a car, their faces pale in the twilight. Parker and Chester. They had come, just as they'd promised. Candace greeted them with a trembling smile. "Thank you for coming," she whispered, though part of her wanted to slam the door and pretend she'd never asked for help. Behind her, the house loomed like a coffin standing upright, its windows black, its walls breathing shadows. Somewhere upstairs, a floorboard creaked, as though something too large for the room was shifting inside its skin. And Candace, heart-hammering, knew one thing. This was not the boy she had given birth to. The men introduced themselves quickly. Parker, tall and cautious, with an earnest calm in his voice. Chester, slighter, nervy, his eyes darting from shadow to shadow, as though the house itself was listening. They carried equipment in black cases that clicked open like coffins. Cameras, tripods, small blinking devices that hummed faintly when switched on. Candace ushered them into the living room, though she hesitated before stepping aside fully. The house had never felt safe. But with strangers inside its walls, it seemed to stir, as if Tommy might notice and disapprove. She perched on the edge of the sofa, while Parker set a recorder on the coffee table. "Can you tell us again what's been happening with your son?" Parker asked gently, as though speaking to someone fragile. Candace's hands twisted together. He doesn't talk to me anymore. Not since his father passed. He spends all his time upstairs. He's growing so fast I can't keep up with his clothes. And sometimes I think..." She cut herself off, pressing trembling fingers to her mouth. "What do you think?" Chester asked, leaning forward, eager in a way that felt almost unkind. "That he isn't my Tommy anymore," she whispered. The silence that followed was broken by a slow thud from upstairs. One, then another. Heavy footsteps across the ceiling. Chester shot Parker a look. Parker rose calmly. "Would it be all right if we introduced ourselves to him?" Candace shook her head quickly. "He won't like it. He doesn't like visitors." But Parker had already started toward the staircase. Chester followed reluctantly, muttering, "This is a bad idea." The hallway upstairs smelled strange, like damp earth, and something raw, something metallic. Parker approached the closed door at the end. The paint around the knob was scratched, as though fingernails had clawed at it. He knocked softly. "Tommy? My name's Parker. Your mom invited us here because she's worried about you. We only want to talk." Silence. Then a sound of slow dragging of something across the floor inside. Parker glanced at Chester, who shook his head vigorously. "We shouldn't." But the door creaked open on its own, just a few inches. The sliver of the room visible was dark, except for the pale shape of a figure turned away, standing near the window. "Tommy?" Parker tried again. The figure didn't move, didn't answer. Chester whispered, "I think we should leave him alone." But Parker, determined, stepped closer. "Your mom's worried. Could you turn around so we can see you?" Slowly, the figure shifted. The head turned first, too far, too smoothly, until the mask came into view. A crude white covering with holes too large for eyes, a mouth slit jagged across. The body remained twisted toward the window, the neck bending unnaturally. Chester recoiled. "Jesus Christ!" Before Parker could speak again, the door slammed shut with a force that rattled the frames. A heavy scraping sound followed, as though furniture had been shoved against the other side. They retreated downstairs, both pale. Candace stood waiting, clutching her arms. "I told you," she murmured. "He doesn't like visitors." That night, Parker and Chester unpacked their equipment. They set cameras in the hallways, one in the kitchen, another in Candace's bedroom. Despite her protests, Parker insisted on placing one in Tommy's room as well. Chester slipped inside quickly, gagging at the stench like spoiled meat left too long in the sun. He noticed a pile in the corner, half covered by a blanket. When he leaned closer, he realized it wasn't garbage, but bones. Small animal bones, gnawed clean. He backed out quickly, setting the camera on the dresser with shaking hands. "Don't tell her," Parker muttered when Chester explained. "Not yet." Candace prepared tea in the kitchen, though her hands shook so badly she spilled more than she poured. "I just want my old Tommy back," she said. staring at the floor as if afraid the house might be listening. "You're doing the right thing by letting us help," Parker assured her. His calm tone sounded practiced, but Chester noticed his knuckles were white on his cup. They retired to the guest room. The air was stifling, every creak of the house magnified. Chester lay awake long into the night, listening. He heard footsteps above too many, too heavy to belong to one boy. Sometimes they moved to the hallway outside their door. Once, the knob jiggled, slowly, deliberately. Chester held his breath until the sound receded. When dawn finally bled through the curtains, Parker set up the laptop to review footage. Candace hovered behind them, her face pinched with dread. The first hours showed nothing unusual, just empty rooms. But around midnight, movement flickered on Tommy's camera. He had risen from bed. His back was to the lens, but his body, it wasn't right. His arms seemed longer. His spine curved sharply as he hunched forward. He paced the room, restless, clawing at the walls. At one point, he crouched in the corner, trembling violently, as if something inside him was trying to get out. Candace whimpered, pressing her hand to her mouth. The footage continued. At 2 a.m., Tommy left his room. The hallway camera caught him moving on all fours. His limbs jointed wrong, too many bends where none should be. His mask tilted toward the camera briefly, the eye holes empty black pits. Then he entered Candace's room. The three of them leaned closer as the screen showed Tommy standing at her bedside. He bent low, pressing his face near her back. For several long minutes, he remained there, motionless except for a faint heaving. Candace stirred, groaning, and the camera caught a dark stain spreading slowly across her nightgown, as if something inside her was being drained. Candace collapsed back into the chair, sobbing softly. "My boy," she whispered. "What's happened to my boy?" Parker shut the laptop. His voice was tight. "This is no longer just grief. Something is wrong with him, physically, spiritually. We need to find out what." Chester shook his head, pale and sweating. "We need to get out of here." But Candace looked up, eyes wild with desperation. "No, please. You can't leave. They won't understand if I go to the police. You're the only ones who can help." The word they hung in the air. Parker almost asked who she meant, but another thud echoed from upstairs, cutting him off. The house seemed to shudder with it, walls vibrating as if the thing upstairs had grown too large for its room. The house did not sleep that night. Parker and Chester lay in the guest room, the hum of their equipment faint against the silence. Candace's sobs had dwindled hours earlier into shallow breaths, but her unease lingered in the air, sour and heavy. Sometime after midnight, a crash rattled the walls. Both men jolted upright. Another crash followed, wood splintering upstairs, a dresser shoved aside, the sound of something impossibly heavy pacing the floor. Parker grabbed the handheld camera from the nightstand. "Stay here," he whispered. Chester shook his head furiously. "Like hell. You're not going alone." They opened the guest room door into a hallway drowned in shadows. The floor groaned beneath their steps. From above came a steady creak, 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 too slow and deliberate to be human footsteps. Candace's bedroom door burst open, and she stumbled into the hall, clutching her back. Her face was pale, eyes wide with terror. "He was in my room again," she gasped. He's growing. You don't understand. He's too big for the bed now, too big for—" Her words cut off as the ceiling above them buckled, plaster snowing down. A sound like stretching rope filled the air, but wetter, more visceral, the tearing of flesh as bones expanded beneath skin. They froze. Then came a scream. It was not a boy's scream, not even a man's. It was low and guttural, a roar forced through a human throat, echoing through the beams of the house. Candace crumpled against the wall, sobbing. "That isn't my Tommy!" Parker steadied her, though his own face had drained of color. "We need to see what's happening." Chester clutched his arm. "Are you insane? Did you not hear that?" But Parker's resolve was iron. If we don't face him now, she won't survive the night. Together they mounted the staircase. Each step creaked beneath their weight, though it seemed the true weight pressing down came from above, where something larger than a man was moving. At the top, Tommy's door gaped wide. The stench hit them first meat left rotting in a ditch, hair burning wet soil. Chester gagged, covering his mouth. The room was dark except for the pale light of the moon. In that light they saw him. Tommy was hunched in the center of the room, his back to them. His shoulders jutted at angles, bones pushing beneath skin that looked stretched too thin. His arms hung to the floor, fingers dragging grooves into the wood. His mask sagged sideways on his head, the elastic snapping, but he clung to it with both hands as if terrified to show his face. "Tommy," Parker said softly, holding out a hand. "We just want to help." The creature turned. The mask shifted, revealing the jaw beneath elongated. Teeth too many, too sharp. The skin around it was split, where the bone had forced itself outward. His eyes glowed dimly behind the holes, red and sunken. Chester stumbled back. "That's not a boy. That's not even human." Tommy lurched forward on all fours, limbs too long, the sound of his bones cracking with every movement. He stopped at the camera hidden on the dresser, sniffed it, then slammed it to the floor with a screeching snarl. Parker caught Candace's arm and pulled her back toward the hallway. "We can't stay up here," but Tommy followed, dragging himself forward, his frame swelling even as they watched. His head brushed the ceiling now, hair hanging in matted clumps. He slammed a hand against the wall, the plaster shattering, and with the other he clawed at his mask, ripping it away. Candace screamed. What lay beneath was not her son's face. The skin sagged in uneven folds, jaw distended, eyes rolling in sockets too large for the skull. The bones jutted outward like antlers piercing through. He opened his mouth, and the sound that emerged was a hiss and a moan together, an imitation of speech. "Ma!" Candace staggered forward despite Parker's grip. "Tommy! Please stop, you're hurting me!" The thing that had been Tommy tilted its head, neck bones cracking, then lurched toward her. Parker yanked her away, but its fingers brushed her arm, leaving long red welts. They fled downstairs, Tommy's bulk shaking the staircase as he descended behind them. Chester nearly tripped on the last step, scrambling to his feet as Parker shoved Candace toward the kitchen. The house itself seemed to groan, windows rattling, beams straining as though it, too, feared what was inside it. "Out the door!" Parker shouted, but Candace shook her head violently. "No, he'll follow us. He won't stop. You don't understand, he needs me." As if to prove her words, Tommy halted at the bottom of the stairs, crouched low, and then with impossible speed launched himself across the living room. He landed between them and the front door, his form now towering, shoulders scraping the ceiling, spine arched in grotesque loops. Chester screamed, fumbling with the camera. "We're dead! We're all dead!" Parker shoved him aside and grabbed a chair, swinging it in a desperate arc. The wood splintered across Tommy's shoulder. He barely flinched. Instead, he opened his jaws wider than any human mouth should, and from deep inside came a sucking, rasping sound. Candace collapsed, clutching her back as if invisible strings were pulling something from her spine. Her legs buckled. "He's taking it," she moaned. "He's taking it from me." Parker grabbed her, dragging her toward the kitchen. Chester followed, stumbling. They slammed the door behind them, bracing it with the refrigerator. The wood shuddered instantly as Tommy's fists hammered from the other side. "What the hell is he doing to her?" Chester gasped, wild-eyed. Parker looked at Candace, who was trembling violently on the floor. Dark lines spread across her skin, like veins turning black. "He's feeding," Parker whispered. "Whatever he's become, he's using her to survive." The pounding on the door stopped. Silence stretched, heavier than the noise had been. Then, slowly, the sound of scratching began. Nails or claws dragging down the door. Patient, deliberate. Candace's breathing grew ragged. "He only comes at night," she whispered. "He grows while the world sleeps. And every night, he takes more from me." Parker crouched beside her. "Why didn't you tell anyone?" "The police, a doctor. They wouldn't understand," she said. Her eyes rolled toward the ceiling, glassy with despair. "And I couldn't bear for them to take him away. He's still my son." The refrigerator jerked, sliding forward as the door bowed inward. Chester screamed, shoving it back with all his weight. "We're not making it till morning," he cried. Parker gritted his teeth. "Then we confront him now." The door burst open. Tommy loomed in the doorway, filling the frame. His body had swollen grotesquely, muscles and bones jutting against thin skin. His head nearly brushed the ceiling, and his jaw dangled open, dripping dark saliva. He crawled into the kitchen, the floor groaning beneath him, eyes fixed on Candace. "Ma," he crooned again, the sound warped and hollow. Candace reached toward him, tears streaming. "Tommy," for one terrible instant, the thing hesitated, swaying as if caught between hunger and recognition. Then it lunged. Parker shoved Candace aside, the monster's claws grazing his arm. He swung the broken chair leg like a spear, jamming it into the creature's throat. It howled, a sound that made the walls tremble, but it did not fall. Chester grabbed a kitchen knife, slashing wildly. The blade sank into its arm, black ichor spilling, but the wound only seemed to enrage it. It backhanded Chester across the room, slamming him into the cabinets. He crumpled, gasping for breath. Tommy turned back to Candace. His hands closed around her shoulders, pulling her up as if she weighed nothing. His mouth descended toward the nape of her neck. Parker lunged, shouting, but Candace's eyes met his. "Don't," she whispered. "He needs me." Her words froze him. For an instant, he saw not a monster but a child clinging to his mother. Then Tommy's jaws closed, and Candace screamed. Candace's scream tore through the kitchen, a jagged sound that rose and broke, filling every corner of the house. Parker lunged forward, striking at Tommy with the chair leg, but the creature barely flinched. Its jaw was locked onto her back, shoulders shuddering as if drinking something deep inside her. Candace's arms spasmed, then fell limp. Dark veins pulsed outward from the place Tommy had latched onto her, spidering across her skin. Her body sagged in his grasp, yet her eyes remained open, glassy, fixated on him with a strange blend of terror and devotion. "Stop!" Parker roared. He drove the splintered wood deeper into Tommy's throat, twisting until black fluid splattered the tiles. Tommy shrieked, the sound rattling the glass in the cabinets. He flung Candace aside like a doll. She struck the wall and crumpled, her legs bent awkwardly beneath her. Chester, blood trickling from his forehead, scrambled up from the floor, clutching the knife again. "He's killing her!" he screamed. Together, they attacked. Parker rammed the chair leg into Tommy's chest, while Chester slashed at its limbs. For a moment, it seemed to stagger, but then its body convulsed and grew. The skin split along its arms, revealing cords of muscle that writhed like snakes. Its spine stretched higher, the top of its head scraping plaster from the ceiling. Bones cracked outward through flesh, forming jagged protrusions like wings that never finished growing. The air reeked of blood and rot. Tommy's head swung down toward them, mouth yawning wide. From the pit of his throat came not one voice but many, a chorus of whispers layering together. Feed, grow, live. The lights flickered, then blew out. In the sudden dark, Parker heard Chester sobbing. He heard Candace's faint breath, a wet rasp, and beneath it all, the slither of something moving closer. He fumbled for the flashlight clipped to his vest, snapped it on. The beam caught Tommy's face inches away. The mask was gone. The eyes were pits, but within them burned a dull, endless hunger. Parker stumbled back, hauling Chester with him. "We can't stop him," he said hoarsely. "We need to get out now." But when they reached the front door, it wouldn't open. The knob turned uselessly in his hand. The wood groaned as if fused shut. Behind them, Candace's voice rose, thin, trembling, but unmistakably hers. "Don't hurt him," she whispered. They turned. She was standing. Somehow, though her legs dragged lifelessly, the black veins had spread across her face, darkening her lips and eyes. She moved toward Tommy with slow, halting steps, as if drawn by invisible strings. "He's still my son," she said. "He just needs more time." "Candace, no!" Parker shouted. But she reached him, and Tommy bent low, cradling her like a child might cradle a broken toy. His jaws opened again, pressing against her neck. Parker felt something inside him snap. He couldn't watch her die like this. He charged, driving the chair leg into Tommy's spine. This time he drove with every ounce of strength left, every shred of will. The wood pierced deep. Tommy screamed, rearing up. For the first time, he faltered. His grip on Candace loosened, but Candace only turned her head slowly toward Parker, eyes black and glistening. "You don't understand," she murmured. "Without me, he won't survive." And then, with a sudden violence that stole Parker's breath, she seized the broken chair leg herself and yanked it out of Tommy's body. The black fluid splattered her arms, soaking into the veins already spreading. She turned the weapon away from him, away from herself. Her voice, when it came again, was not her own. It was layered, deep and hollow, carrying the same chorus Parker had heard from Tommy's throat. "He grows." The house shuddered violently, windows shattering inward. Chester screamed as glass rained down. Parker dragged him toward the kitchen door, forcing it open at last under the strain. They staggered out into the night air, gasping. Behind them, the house trembled like a living thing. From the upstairs window, a figure loomed too large to be contained inside, limbs pressing against the frame as if the house was merely a shell about to burst. Candace's face appeared in the window beside it, pale and stretched, her eyes glowing faintly in the dark. She smiled faintly, lips torn and blackened. "Don't come back," her voice carried, impossibly loud across the yard. Then the window cracked, the roof bowed. The entire house seemed to sigh, as though releasing centuries of breath. Parker and Chester fled to the car, tires spitting gravel as they tore down the lane. The rearview mirror showed the house sinking into shadow, swallowed by its own collapse. Neither spoke for miles. Chester's hands shook on his knees, his voice broken when he finally whispered, "What was that?" Parker stared ahead, jaw tight. He had no answer. By dawn, they reached the edge of town. Parker pulled into a gas station, cutting the engine. The silence that followed was unbearable. Chester turned to him, eyes hollow. "We left her there." Parker closed his eyes. Images flashed, the veins spreading across Candace's skin, her trembling smile, Tommy's grotesque frame bending toward her. "We couldn't save her," he said at last. "But what if she's still alive?" Parker opened his eyes, staring at the horizon where the sky bled red with sunrise. "Then God help her. And God help anyone who finds that house." For a long moment, neither moved. The gas station attendant came and went. A bird landed on the hood, pecked once, and flew away. But as the morning light strengthened, Parker felt it a shadow at the edge of his vision. He turned quickly, but the lot was empty. Chester noticed too, stiffening. "Did you see?" "Don't," Parker interrupted. His voice was flat. They sat in silence again. But the air was different now, heavy, watching, because somewhere in the back of Parker's mind, he still heard that chorus, faint but insistent. Feed, grow, live. The sun had fully risen by the time Parker and Chester left town. The pale light should have been comforting, but instead it seemed to bleach the world empty. Like a stage after the play had ended, but the echoes of the performance still clung to the curtains. They had escaped. At least, their bodies had. Neither spoke of what they'd seen in that house, not in detail, not in words that made sense. They drove in silence until the interstate blurred into miles of gray. Chester finally dozed in the passenger seat, but Parker kept his hands clenched on the wheel, eyes locked ahead. Each time he blinked, he saw it again. Candace's face, smiling faintly through veins of black. Tommy's body tearing itself into something bigger, something older than bone. When they finally parted ways, Chester muttering he never wanted to set foot in a house again, Parker giving no reply, they promised themselves it was over. They would bury the tapes, the footage, the memory. But horror has a way of lingering, of finding its way back into the cracks of everyday life. 2 weeks later, Parker found himself awake at 3 a.m., staring at the ceiling of his apartment. The city was quiet, unusually so. Then he heard it, a faint scraping sound near the window. He told himself it was the branches, but the apartment was on the 7th floor. He rose, heart hammering, and pulled the curtain aside. Nothing. Just the night sky and the city lights. But in the reflection of the glass, for the briefest moment, he thought he saw another face standing just behind him, white, slack, too long in the jaw. He refused to look again. Chester fared worse. He quit his job, moved to another state, tried to drown the memories in alcohol. But the dreams came anyway. In them, he wandered hallways that bent too long, doors multiplying, shadows crawling like insects across the floor. At the end of every hallway, Candace waited, her voice soft. "Don't hurt him. He just needs more time." Sometimes, when Chester woke, his arms ached as though someone had been pulling at the marrow inside them. Back in town, Willow Lane grew quiet. The neighbors told each other the house had collapsed after years of neglect, that Candace had moved away. The police filed the case under missing persons, but children whispered of a different truth. They said at night, if you walked too close to the lot where the house had stood, you could hear breathing, long, labored, rattling breaths that shook the ground. Some swore they'd seen a figure crouched among the rubble, too tall to be human, too thin to be an animal. The bravest or the most foolish claimed they heard a voice carried on the wind. A woman's voice, soft, trembling, but devoted. "He's still my son." Parker tried to dismiss these rumors. He tried to move on, to bury himself in other cases, other families haunted by grief. But the unease never left. Late one evening, sorting through the files on his laptop, he found a folder he hadn't created. Inside was footage grainy, black and white. He clicked one file and froze. It was his own bedroom, recorded while he slept. The door opened slowly in the video, and something long and shadowed crept inside. The shape moved to the side of the bed, bending low. In the static haze of the recording, Parker could just make out a white mask tilted over his sleeping form. The clip ended there. He shut the laptop and sat motionless until morning. Life went on for others, but for Parker and Chester, there was no clean ending. The chorus still lingered in the quiet spaces of their minds, a whisper beneath the hum of city traffic, beneath the buzz of fluorescent lights, beneath the silence of night. Feed, grow, live. And somewhere, in the ruins of Willow Lane, or perhaps far beyond it, something was still growing.